I am honestly proud to present the Hirschholt Humanitarian Award to Charlton Heston.
When Betty Davis says it, you figure it must be true, but really, I think I won this award for doing the kind of chores a whole lot of other people do too. But because I'm an actor, when I do them, they take my picture.
Ladies and gentlemen of the National Rifle Association, your first Vice President, Mr. Charlton Heston.
Brave, wise, gallant men. They knew their signatures on that Declaration of Independence, told everybody that they were willing to die for it.
Charlton Heston was a Hollywood legend, an icon of epic films, a larger-than-life presence on and off the screen. But behind the glitz and glamour, one of his co-stars harbored a deep, secret resentment toward him. It wasn't about talent or fame. This was something far more personal, something hidden for years. What could make someone secretly despise a man so revered by millions? The truth is more shocking than you'd ever expect. Stay tuned as we uncover the real reason behind this hidden Hollywood feud. The feud that shook Hollywood, Charlton Heston versus Sophia Loren. Hollywood has seen its fair share of legendary rivalries, but few have been as fiery, bitter, and long-lasting as the one between Charlton Heston and Sophia Loren. The two stars, both at the height of their fame in the early 1960s, shared the screen in the epic historical drama El Cid in 1961. On film, their chemistry was undeniable, an electric blend of passion and intensity that captivated audiences worldwide. But behind the camera, it was a different story entirely. Their relationship, instead of being one of mutual admiration, quickly spiraled into open hostility. Heston, famous for his strict discipline and unwavering professionalism, had little patience for anything he saw as disruptive behavior. Loren, on the other hand, was an international sensation, effortlessly glamorous, supremely talented, but also known for her strong personality and diva-like tendencies. Their differences were apparent from the start. At first, the tension simmered beneath the surface, manifesting in subtle clashes and sharp exchanges. But before long, it erupted into full-scale warfare. So what was the cause of this deep-seated animosity? Some claimed it was the small things. Loren's notorious habit of eating garlic before filming love scenes, much to Heston's disgust. Others pointed to her frequent tardiness, which clashed with Heston's rigid expectations of punctuality and discipline. But whispers in Hollywood suggested something far deeper: a betrayal, an unspoken insult, or perhaps an off-camera power struggle that neither could let go. The situation became so unbearable that Heston, years later, made his feelings crystal clear. In an unfiltered moment, he famously quipped, "I'd rather stick needles in my eyes than work with her again." For a man of his stature, known for his calm demeanor and strong moral compass, such words carried weight. But the impact of this feud extended beyond the two stars involved. It was a defining moment that highlighted the growing clash between old-school Hollywood professionalism and the rising era of celebrity power, where image and influence often outweighed tradition. It also exposed the fragile nature of on-screen magic, how a perfectly crafted illusion could mask the stark reality of personal conflict. Now, over 6 decades later, the story of Heston and Loren's feud remains one of the most intriguing and cautionary tales in Hollywood history. Was it merely a clash of egos, a collision of two titanic personalities? Or was there something even more dramatic, something still hidden beneath the surface? One thing is certain: Their animosity left a mark, not just on their careers, but on Hollywood itself. And even today, as audiences continue to be mesmerized by El Cid, the real drama, it seems, was happening when the cameras weren't rolling. But was Charlton Heston so difficult? Perhaps knowing his background would help us understand him better. Let's delve into the details of who Charles Heston is. Charlton Heston, the making of a Hollywood giant. Charlton Heston, long before becoming the legendary face of grand historical and biblical films, was just an ordinary boy from small-town America. Born on October 4th, 1923, in a place with the almost poetic name of No Man's Land, Illinois, he came into a world filled with struggle. His parents, Lila and Russell Carter, fought to keep their family afloat during the Great Depression, a time when financial security was a distant dream for many. Their constant search for stability meant frequent moves, making Heston's childhood one of uncertainty and adaptation. Then, at just 10 years old, his world shifted again. His parents divorced. It was a painful and defining moment, leaving a deep impression on the young boy. His mother later married Chester Heston, and Charlton, still adjusting to the changes in his life, took his stepfather's surname. Little did anyone know that this name would one day be synonymous with cinematic greatness. Even as a child, Heston had a natural flair for the dramatic. At just 5 years old, he stood on a tree stump in the middle of town and recited The Night Before Christmas entirely from memory, captivating the small audience around him. It was a glimpse of the performer he would become, fearless, commanding, and unforgettable. His real journey into acting, however, began almost by accident. While attending New Trier High School in Illinois, he decided on a whim to audition for the school play, The Wrecker's Daughter. With no real expectations, he was stunned when he landed the lead role. That moment sparked something inside him, a passion for performance that would soon consume his life. His drama teacher, Priscilla Weaver, quickly recognized his immense talent. She encouraged him to push beyond his fears, challenging him with difficult roles, including Shakespeare's Macbeth. Though stage fright gripped him at times, his deep, resonant voice and powerful presence made him stand out. His talent did not go unnoticed. Northwestern University saw his potential and offered him a drama scholarship, an opportunity that would change everything. At Northwestern, Heston was unstoppable. Over 2 intense years, he performed in an astonishing 30 roles, often functioning on just 4 hours of sleep. His hunger for the craft was undeniable. One of his most memorable experiences was starring in a low-budget student adaptation of Peer Gynt. While not a Hollywood blockbuster, this small production marked his unofficial film debut, foreshadowing the cinematic legacy to come. Amidst the whirlwind of performances and studies, Heston also found something even more enduring: love. He met Lydia Clark, the woman who would become his wife in 1944. Their bond stood the test of time, lasting an incredible 64 years, an anomaly in Hollywood's ever-changing landscape. His steadfast loyalty, a defining trait of both his personal and professional life, would later play a crucial role in a notorious feud with the legendary Sophia Loren. At some points in his life, he was said to have joined the army. When did this happen? How did he combine both? Or did he quit one for the other? Let's find out. From soldier to star, Heston's rise in Hollywood. With World War II engulfing the world in chaos, Charlton Heston made a life-altering decision. He set aside his dreams and answered the call to serve his country. In 1944, he enlisted in the Army Air Forces, training rigorously as a radio operator and gunner. for the formidable B-25 bombers. His assignment took him to one of the most unforgiving places on Earth, the Aleutian Islands. There, amid the brutal cold and relentless isolation, he faced not just the enemy, but also the overwhelming solitude that tested the resilience of every soldier. One fateful mission nearly ended in disaster. Heston's plane was forced to make an emergency landing on a desolate, uninhabited island. For 3 long days, he and his crew were stranded, surrounded by nothing but ice and uncertainty. Yet, instead of succumbing to fear or despair, Heston turned to something that had always grounded him: Shakespeare. He spent those harrowing days reciting the bard's works from memory, proving that even in the face of peril, his passion for storytelling and performance remained unshaken. When the war finally ended, Heston and his wife Lydia embarked on a new kind of battle: the fight to build a career in the unforgiving world of acting. They moved to New York City, settling into a tiny apartment in Hell's Kitchen. With no steady income, they made ends meet by working as artist models, barely scraping by as they chased their artistic ambitions. Their perseverance, however, would soon bear fruit. In 1947, Heston secured a role in a Broadway revival of Antony and Cleopatra. Though he played only a supporting part, his commanding stage presence didn't go unnoticed. Critics saw something in him, something powerful, raw, and magnetic. His performances soon earned him a place in the emerging world of television dramas. His standout appearance in Wuthering Heights on CBS proved to be a turning point. Among the many watching was Hal B. Wallis, one of Hollywood's most influential producers. Wallis saw potential and offered Heston a movie contract. But there was a problem. Heston was a theater man at heart. He hesitated, unsure if film was the right path for him. Eventually, he decided to give it a try. His cinematic debut came in Dark City in 1950. The film wasn't a blockbuster, but it accomplished something crucial. It showcased Heston's undeniable screen presence. Then, fate intervened in the most unexpected way. While walking across the Paramount lot one day, Heston casually waved at legendary director Cecil B. DeMille. That simple gesture changed everything. DeMille, the mastermind behind grand biblical epics, saw something special in Heston. The moment led to his casting in The Greatest Show on Earth in 1952, a spectacle that won the Academy Award for Best Picture. With that, Heston was no longer just another aspiring actor. He was on the brink of something extraordinary. Then came the role that would define his legacy forever. Let's dig into the movie that birthed the Hollywood legend: The 10 Commandments and the birth of a Hollywood titan. In 1956, legendary filmmaker Cecil B. DeMille made a career-defining decision when he cast Charlton Heston as Moses in The 10 Commandments. It wasn't just Heston's commanding presence that won him the role. DeMille saw an uncanny resemblance between the actor and Michelangelo's famous statue of Moses. That striking visual connection, combined with Heston's talent, made him the perfect choice for the epic film. Determined to embody the biblical prophet as authentically as possible, Heston took his preparation to the next level. He embarked on a transformative journey, shedding 30 pounds to reflect the hardships of Moses' life. He let his hair and beard grow long, embracing the rugged appearance of the ancient world. But he didn't stop there. In his dedication to realism, Heston studied both ancient Egyptian and Hebrew, immersing himself in the languages and history of the time to add depth to his performance. The production of the 10 Commandments was as grand and ambitious as the story it sought to tell. But it was not without peril. One of the most dramatic moments in the film, the parting of the Red Sea, almost turned into a real-life disaster.
A miscalculation in the special effects caused the water to surge with unexpected force, nearly sweeping Heston away in the powerful current. Fortunately, he managed to escape unharmed, but the experience only added to the film's legendary status.
One of the film's most fascinating secrets? Heston didn't just play Moses, he also lent his voice to the divine. In the unforgettable burning bush scene, it is actually Heston's own deep, resonant voice speaking as God. This meant that in one of the film's most powerful moments, Heston was, in effect, acting opposite himself, bringing both the mortal and divine aspects of the story to life in a way few actors ever have. When the Ten Commandments hit theaters, it was nothing short of a cinematic triumph. The film raked in a staggering $12.7 million, an astronomical sum at the time, and quickly became a beloved classic. Decades later, it remains a staple of Easter television broadcasts, solidifying its place in film history. Heston's portrayal of Moses, with his commanding presence and thunderous delivery, remains one of the most iconic biblical performances ever captured on screen. But his journey as a Hollywood legend didn't stop there. Just 3 years later, in 1959, Heston took on another colossal role, that of Judah Ben-Hur in Ben-Hur. This film would not only match the epic scale of the Ten Commandments, but would surpass it, earning a record-breaking 11 Academy Awards and further cementing Charlton Heston's legacy as one of the greatest actors of his time. With enough background about Charlton Heston, what might have given rise to the rift that played out between Charlton and Sophia Loren, such that would eventually lead to silent hatred? Let's look into the timeline of their professional relationship. The feud begins, Charlton Heston versus Sophia Loren. By 1961, Charlton Heston was at the pinnacle of his career, having cemented his status as one of Hollywood's most commanding leading men. He was chosen to portray Rodrigo Diaz de Vivar, the legendary Spanish warrior in El Cid, a grand historical epic. Starring opposite him was the stunning and celebrated Italian actress Sophia Loren, cast as Ximena. It should have been a perfect pairing of two cinematic icons. Instead, it became one of Hollywood's most infamous feuds. From the very start, the tension was palpable. Heston was known for his disciplined, no-nonsense approach to filmmaking. Punctual, professional, and focused. Loren, on the other hand, had a more relaxed attitude. She was frequently late, made ongoing demands for script adjustments, and insisted on special treatment. For Heston, this was nothing short of infuriating. His frustration boiled over almost immediately. Production was routinely stalled for hours due to Loren's elaborate makeup and costume preparations. The breaking point came on December 3, 1960, when she arrived on set a staggering 4 hours late. Heston, fuming, vented in his diary, "Sophia's tardiness is not just unprofessional, it's downright disrespectful." But that wasn't the only issue. There was also the matter of her breath. A proud Italian, Loren adored rich, garlic-infused cuisine, and she never held back from indulging. Unfortunately for Heston, this meant that whenever they had to film romantic or intimate scenes, he was met with what he later called pizza breath. The smell was so overwhelming that he reportedly demanded a body double for close-up shots. However, what truly shattered any hope of professional harmony was an act Heston saw as outright betrayal. Without his knowledge, Loren secretly arranged for parts of the script to be rewritten, modifying key scenes and altering character dynamics. When Heston discovered the changes, his fury knew no bounds. He was so livid that he refused to speak to her unless absolutely necessary, avoiding eye contact on set entirely. By the time El Cid premiered in London on December 6, 1961, their animosity was impossible to ignore. Forced to pose for publicity photos together, they kept their distance, their icy expressions betraying their true feelings. Any possibility of future collaboration was off the table. When offered roles alongside Loren in later projects, Heston's response was legendary. "I'd rather stick needles in my eyes." As for Loren, she later reflected on the experience with measured wisdom. Every film teaches you something. Sometimes the lesson is about acting. Sometimes it's about yourself. Though both actors went on to achieve remarkable careers, their on-set battle became one of Hollywood's most unforgettable clashes. A dramatic rivalry between two giants, forever etched in the annals of cinema history. What else could have led to the silent hatred Sophie has for Charlton? Could it be his political views and inclinations? Let's dig into the details of his political involvement.
Charlton Heston, the man, the myth, the politics, and why Sophia Loren may have loathed him. Some movie stars do more than just entertain. They create on-screen identities so powerful that they carry real-world influence. A select few, like John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, and Clint Eastwood, became icons of strength and resilience, resonating deeply with conservative audiences. Meanwhile, actors like Gregory Peck, Sidney Poitier, and George Clooney embodied thoughtfulness and compassion, winning admiration from liberals. Yet, no Hollywood figure intertwined their cinematic image with their real-world activism as seamlessly and for as long as Charlton Heston. Unlike Eastwood, who briefly entered politics as the mayor of Carmel, California, Heston never ran for office. Yet his on-screen persona gave weight to his political causes in ways few could match. Heston's legendary roles as Moses, John the Baptist, and Ben-Hur forged an almost biblical aura around him. To many, he wasn't just a movie star. He was a moral compass. This perception was so strong that in 1979, during a heated community debate, one woman famously asked, "How could you go against what Moses says?" But Heston's activism wasn't always conservative. In the 1960s, he was a dedicated liberal, marching for civil rights alongside Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He even led the Hollywood delegation at the 1963 March on Washington, where his presence helped make the movement more palatable to Middle America. Yet, by the 1970s, as his views on issues like Vietnam shifted, he aligned with the Republican Party, campaigning for Nixon and later Ronald Reagan. As his acting career slowed, Heston remained a force in public life, taking on liberal heavyweights, like Paul Newman in televised debates. In the late 1990s, he became the face of the National Rifle Association, helping swell its membership and influencing elections. Even in death, his legacy remains larger than life. Forever Moses, in the eyes of his admirers. With his strict nature, he might have had challenges with a few other colleagues. Let's look into his encounter with another colleague, a difficult colleague. A production plagued by chaos, the turmoil behind 55 Days at Peking.
55 Days at Peking was envisioned as a grand historical spectacle, a sweeping epic that would bring to life the dramatic siege of foreign embassies during the Boxer Rebellion in China. The film promised action, romance, and historical intrigue. But from the very first day of filming in Spain on May 15, 1962, it became clear that this ambitious project was destined for chaos. What was meant to be a cinematic triumph quickly spiraled into a nightmare of clashing egos, extreme weather, and an ever-growing financial disaster.
Charlton Heston, the film's leading man, arrived on set eager to dive into his role. However, his enthusiasm was short-lived. Instead of a polished screenplay, he was handed a skeletal 140-page script. Barely enough to structure a film of this magnitude. It was a troubling sign of what lay ahead. The following 17 weeks would be a relentless storm of frustration, delays, and simmering tensions that threatened to tear the production apart. At the heart of much of the on-set drama was Ava Gardner, Heston's co-star. Glamorous yet famously temperamental, Gardner brought more than just star power. She brought unpredictability. Hoping to foster a sense of unity among the cast, she hosted an extravagant cocktail party at her Madrid apartment on June 2nd. For a brief moment, it seemed to work. Spirits were high, and camaraderie was in the air. But the goodwill was fleeting. Just days later, Heston confided in his journal that his on-screen romance with Gardner felt hollow, the dialogue between them so poorly written that delivering it felt like an ordeal. If working relationships were fraying, the relentless Madrid heat only made matters worse. With temperatures soaring past 100 degrees Fahrenheit, wearing heavy period costumes became unbearable. The heat drained energy, frayed tempers, and tested endurance. The tipping point came on July 3rd when Gardner clashed bitterly with director Nicholas Ray. In a dramatic display of fury, she stormed off the set, bringing filming to an abrupt halt for 4 excruciating hours. Beyond the interpersonal struggles, the film was hemorrhaging money at an alarming rate. Initially budgeted at $7 million, production costs spiraled out of control, ballooning to a staggering $17 million by the time filming finally wrapped. On September 28, 1962, reshoots, delays, and logistical nightmares drained both finances and morale. By the time 55 Days at Peking reached theaters on May 29, 1963, it bore the scars of its turbulent creation. What was meant to be a landmark in historical cinema had instead become a cautionary tale of how even the grandest visions can be undone by disarray, discord, and a script that was never truly ready. But was Anna Gardner so difficult? Let's take a glimpse into the kind of person she is. Ava Gardner, the unruly starlet. From the moment Ava Gardner stepped onto the set, it became clear that the film's production was in for a turbulent ride. Known for her breathtaking beauty and undeniable talent, she also carried with her a reputation for self-destructive habits. Habits that would soon spiral out of control, throwing the entire project into chaos. Her disruptive influence began on day 1. On June 5th, when the cast gathered for a script reading, Gardner arrived a full 45 minutes late. Worse still, she was already visibly intoxicated. What seemed like an unfortunate mishap quickly proved to be a pattern. Her drinking escalated to the point where, by mid-morning, she was often too inebriated to function. Some days, she staggered onto the set as early as 10 a.m., slurring her words, unable to focus, and forcing costly delays. One particularly disastrous day, July 12th, she was so drunk that she couldn't recall a single line from her script, bringing filming to a grinding halt for 3 agonizing hours. As the weeks passed, her behavior became even more erratic. On August 3rd, in the middle of a crucial scene, she suddenly stopped acting, turned on her heel, and stormed off, mumbling that she was too tired to continue. The crew was left standing in stunned silence as an entire day's work was scrapped, wasting an estimated $50,000. Just when the production team thought they had seen the worst, August 17th brought an even more dangerous outburst. In a moment of fury, Gardner hurled a heavy prop vase at a cameraman. Though he barely dodged it, the vase shattered against the equipment, causing extensive damage. The nightmare didn't end there. Day after day, she struggled with her lines, turning even the simplest dialogue exchanges into exhausting ordeals. Patience among the crew began to wear thin. On September 5th, what should have been a straightforward scene turned into an exercise in futility, requiring a staggering 27 takes because Gardner couldn't concentrate. The countless delays, repeated reshoots, and abandoned filming days pushed the budget higher and higher, ultimately inflating production costs by at least $2 million. For many, working alongside Gardner became unbearable. Crew members, worn down by the constant chaos, pleaded for reassignment just to escape the tension. But no one suffered more than Charlton Heston. As her co-star, he had no choice but to endure the whirlwind of unpredictability that followed Gardner wherever she went. For him, each day on set was a battle, not just against the demands of the film, but against the relentless storm that was Ava Gardner. Charlton Heston, a man known for his unwavering discipline and strong work ethic, found himself locked in a battle of patience while working alongside Ava Gardner. Was he able to cope with her unprofessional behavior? Or did his frustration keep rising? Let's find out. Heston's growing frustration. Her unpredictable behavior on set quickly turned his experience into a test of endurance. Heston, ever the consummate professional, kept a journal that captured his mounting frustration during that turbulent summer. On July 20th, his exasperation was already evident. Ava showed up 3 hours late today, reeking of gin. It's becoming impossible to work with her. Her unprofessionalism is staggering. As the weeks dragged on, his patience wore thinner. By August 8th, his entries were filled with outright frustration. Another day wasted, waiting for Ava to remember her lines. This woman is single-handedly derailing the entire production. Gardner's unpredictable nature was not just an inconvenience, it was a full-blown crisis for the production. Her frequent tardiness, forgetfulness, and drinking made every shoot an uphill battle. Heston, who prided himself on discipline, found it almost unbearable. After the film's release, he no longer hid his true feelings. In a candid September 1963 interview with Photoplay magazine, he called working with Gardner the most difficult challenge of his career. He did not stop there. In his 1995 autobiography, In the Arena, he painted an even bleaker picture, describing her as a force of chaos whose drinking and chronic lateness disrupted filming on a daily basis. The tension reached its peak on August 25th, in what would become one of the most infamous incidents of the shoot. Gardner arrived visibly intoxicated, slurring her lines and barely able to stand upright. The director and crew watched in frustration as she stumbled through take after take. Then, without warning, she unleashed a furious tirade against everyone around her, berating the director and snapping at the crew. Heston, trying to salvage what was left of the day, stepped in, only to become her next target. He later confessed, "It took every ounce of my professional restraint not to walk off the set then and there." Even years later, his disappointment in her never faded. In a 1970 interview, he did not mince words when discussing her performance in 55 Days at Peking. Ava's performance was salvaged more by the editor than by any effort on her part. The number of usable takes was shockingly low. Their professional relationship had been fraught with tension, their clashes well documented, and their personalities too incompatible to coexist peacefully on set. And yet, despite all of this, fate would not allow them to part ways so easily. Their paths would cross again, proving that in Hollywood, the most unlikely pairings sometimes find themselves bound together once more.
But how did it go when their paths crossed again? When and where did it happen? Let's find out. A tense reunion in Earthquake. More than a decade after their infamous clashes on the set of 55 Days at Peking, Charlton Heston and Ava Gardner found themselves working together again in the 1974 disaster epic Earthquake. Given their history of hostility, many were stunned that Heston agreed to share the screen with Gardner once more. But when a $600,000 paycheck was on the table, even old grudges had to take a back seat. At first, it seemed like time had softened the edges of their once volatile relationship. Heston, known for his meticulous record-keeping, noted in his February 10, 1974, journal entry, "Ava seems different, more focused, less volatile. Perhaps time has mellowed us both." For a brief moment, it looked as though the storm had passed, but the uneasy truce didn't last long. By the third week of filming, old habits resurfaced. On February 25th, Gardner showed up 2 hours late, visibly hungover. Heston, already exasperated, lost his patience. His voice rang out across the set. "It's like 55 days all over again." The tension was palpable, and it seemed like history was doomed to repeat itself. However, in a twist of fate, it was the very nature of Earthquake, a film centered on chaos and destruction, that unexpectedly helped mend their fractured dynamic. The harrowing earthquake sequences, filled with collapsing buildings and panicked crowds, forced them into intense, high-stakes moments together. As they navigated the simulated disaster, a shift occurred. The shared experience of working through such physically demanding scenes seemed to strip away lingering resentment. Years later, Gardner herself reflected on the experience in her autobiography. "Charlton and I may have had our differences, but when those tremors started, we were in it together." There's nothing like shared adversity to put past conflicts into perspective. The electricity of their off-screen tension translated into something magnetic on camera. Critics took notice, with Roger Ebert commenting that their performances felt strikingly authentic, as though their fictional marital strife mirrored their real-life clashes. Audiences were captivated by the raw, unfiltered chemistry between the two screen legends. With time, even Heston's perspective on their turbulent working relationship evolved. In a 1985 interview, he reflected, "Working with Ava on Earthquake was, let's say, an opportunity for growth. We both brought our A-game, perhaps driven by a mutual desire to prove something to each other. Despite the fiery tempers, the egos, and the outbursts, their collaborations left an undeniable mark on Hollywood. For Heston, taming the tempest that was Ava Gardner became one of the most challenging and memorable tests of his long and illustrious career. What do you think about why she secretly hated Charlton Heston? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe.